Hey, what's happening, guys? Good morning, everybody. You guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels. Today is Thursday, March 9th, 2023. We got a really exciting video for you guys today. You know, I do these videos every day, and some days I'm like really kind of stretching to find stories, and other days, the previous day or the previous couple days is packed with interesting news and stories, and there's a lot going on in the world and a lot going on in the economy to talk about. And today is one of those more exciting days. We got a lot of exciting stories to talk about. I'm going to ask you guys to do me a favor at the very beginning of this video. Go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content, if you want to, this type of information to get out to more people. One of the videos the other day, and I don't get a ton of views on, I don't get thousands of views on my videos, but I would say most videos do like at least 200 or something. And one of the videos the other day, like even a week later, had like 43 views. And a couple of you guys had even reached out in the comments and said the video didn't show up in your subscriber feed. And so, clearly there's certain types of videos that wind up getting shadow banned. The odd thing is there was nothing even really controversial about the thumbnail, the title, or that particular video, but I would really appreciate it if you guys would do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button down below. Also, I just wanted to thank you guys. I came back from Key West, and it's always kind of hard getting back into the routine of things, and I was kind of questioning, like, what am I making these videos for? Like this, it takes like at least an hour, if not maybe an hour and a half out of my day collecting the news, and then most of these videos wind up running 20 or 30 minutes, even though I don't edit them. And I'm like, what am I really doing this for? I don't get a ton of views. Like, are people even enjoying this? A bunch of you guys, when we put out the first video the other day, said, oh, good to see you're back. I enjoy watching the videos. So it just kind of reinforced why I make the videos, and it's kind of cool to see that some of you guys are enjoying them, even if they don't get mega views. So thank you guys for that. And I got a question. I also kind of want to get the comment section engaged. So I'm going to start doing like kind of a question at the beginning of these videos. Now, the question I'm going to be asking you guys today, and drop a comment down below, where do you guys think mortgage rates will be in June? I kind of think of June as the peak of the home buying season. We've talked about this in recent videos. Typically in the wintertime, home prices slump about 5.6%. Not as many people are listing homes. Not as many people are buying homes. People don't want to move in the wintertime. Also, people don't want to move in the middle of the school year if they have kids. So kind of the spring and summer is peak buying season. But it takes at least 45 days to close on a home, sometimes longer. A lot of mortgage brokers are wanting 60 days now. So if you buy a house in June, you're going to be closing in August, right before kids go back to school. So it's kind of like early spring, and I think kind of by June is probably the peak time for people buying homes. So I'm curious to hear from you guys. Where do you think mortgage rates will be in June? I'll go ahead and throw my guess out. I'm going to say mortgage rates are going to be at like 7.8% come June. So that's kind of all kind of the housekeeping and stuff. Let's kind of get into today's news. Actually, I was watching a video before we kind of get started with what the market did yesterday and some of the other stories of the day. I was watching a video by the Real Estate Mindset. Interesting channel. Check him out. He puts out, I want to say, almost daily videos. He's got some good insights on the housing market and real estate, and he put out a video today titled Millennials Will Crash the Housing Market. And there were just some interesting stats in that video. One stat that I thought was kind of interesting was he said over 50% of home buyers over 65 have been in their house, or no, I think it was home buyers over 65 on average have been in their houses for 33 years. Older people are staying in place. That's kind of part of the reason there's not much inventory. People are staying younger into later ages, and what I mean by that is people are staying healthier, right? People are more vibrant. People have more vitality at older ages, right? You see all these old 70-year-old people doing triathlons, running marathons. Everyone's playing pickleball now. And so, maybe even 30 years ago, people at, 50, at retirement age might downsize into a condo or move into an apartment. They don't want to take care of the big home. They don't need all the space since the kids have left the house. But today we're seeing older people who are healthier. They can maintain their yards. They can maintain their homes, and they're staying in their homes longer. I do think once boomers start dying off or really starting to get to the age where they can't take care of their homes, I do think we'll see a flood of home inventory hitting the market. But it'll be interesting to see kind of how all of that plays out. But that was kind of one interesting stat. Another interesting stat was over half of homeowners under 35 have been in their homes less than 3.5 years. So we have to figure a pretty large, chunk of these people have been in their homes post Mexican beer cough. What does that mean? That means they have low interest rates likely, most of them except the ones who have bought really recently. And so they're not going to want to give up their low interest rates. What else does that mean? That also means that a lot of these people bought at peak prices, and a lot of these people are going to be trapped in their homes. So there's going to be very few people wanting to sell. One of the most common reasons people move is for their careers or job opportunities. And the direction the economy is heading, we have layoffs. A lot of companies have hiring freezes. We're not going to see a lot of people moving for those reasons. And also a lot of people in the past, as they get equity in their home, would upsize to a nicer home, maybe a bigger home, bigger backyard, nicer area of town. But right now, interest rates are high and home prices are so high that, you would have to spend probably 3 times as much money to actually upgrade your home. It's just not worth it. So most people are hunkering in place. We're going to get into that a little bit more here further in the video. Let's talk about the markets yesterday. Dow finished up 58 points. NASDAQ finished up 0.22%. And the S&P 500 finished up 0.14%. Top cryptos, for the most part, were down 2 to 3%. Occasionally, I like to throw out the Bitcoin and Ethereum prices, just because if you're anything like me, you don't really follow the prices on a day-to-day basis. So just want to give you guys an idea where the crypto market is at. Bitcoin currently trading at $21,724. This is as of last night. And Ethereum trading at $1,535. I had this in my notes, but again, drop a comment. Where do you think mortgage rates will be in June? This is not official yet, but somebody at the White House had leaked that Biden is planning on raising the tax rate on billionaires to 25% and raising the capital gains rate from 20% to 39.6%, essentially doubling the capital gains rate. Republicans control Congress, so I don't see that happening. We'll see if he tries to do it with an executive order. Let's talk a little bit about that story, not really economy or business related, but just kind of an interesting story. Let's talk about this story of these 4 Americans. Actually, turns out we've since learned it's 5 Americans who went down to Mexico. I talked about this story in a video the other day. They were murdered and kidnapped by, I believe it's the Gulf Cartel. Story was really weird. We talked in a video yesterday about how half the media was reporting they went down so the woman could have plastic surgery. The other half of the media was reporting they were going down to buy medication. We've learned a little bit more interesting stuff, but details are still cloudy. Apparently, the Mexican officials didn't even know about this until they saw it on Twitter. We've also since learned that it turns out this part of the story is weird. It turns out a 5th person was in the car with them. So it was 4 people who wound up being kidnapped. 2 of them wound up being killed. The other 2 have since been rescued, are with the FBI in Houston in the hospital. Turns out there was a 5th person with them who, when they got to the border, realized they didn't have, I'm guessing, a passport or a passport card. So they went back and left her at the hotel and told her they'd be back, or I believe it was a woman, told her they would be back in 15 minutes. If they're going down for surgery, how are they going to be back in 15 minutes? Were they just driving down to check out the doctor's office? This whole story seems really odd, seems really fishy. Some people speculate that the doctor gave the info to the cartel. Obviously your insurance isn't going to cover a surgery in Mexico. I'm guessing maybe potentially a doctor could have said, "Oh, the surgery is going to be $8,000, but if you pay cash, it's going to be $5,500." And maybe the doctor tipped off the cartel or tipped off somebody. There's going to be these Americans coming down with $5,500. Look for a South Carolina license plate and rob them. We're also hearing that they were possibly mistaken for Haitian drug smugglers. Seems kind of weird. Are they going to, how do you mistake a white minivan with South Carolina license plates as drug smugglers? And if they realize that they weren't these Haitians, why would you kidnap them, right? Like you would just abandon the mission and leave them in the street. Whole thing is kind of very odd. If you guys have heard any other insights about that story, let me know. I know some people are speculating that they were maybe either straw purchasers bringing guns down there, or maybe they were trying to bring back drugs. We don't know yet, so not saying that that's the case. But the whole story is just very odd. We talked about Adidas in a recent video. Adidas was begging Kanye to come back. They were going to give him, I believe, a $2 billion deal, an even bigger deal than the first time. Adidas recently cut their dividend 79% after cutting ties with Yeezy and killing their own profits. We recently reported that they were begging him to come back. Apparently, they're sitting on $1.2 billion in Yeezy inventory. And if they can't wind up selling it to some third party, they're going to wind up burning the inventory. The Yeezy line accounted for 7% of Adidas' overall sales. And Adidas recently announced that they're expecting negative sales growth this year. They're also cutting the dividend, which makes it a less desirable stock to invest in. And they're expecting their first annual loss in 3 decades. Investing.com article, 3 years after the Mexican beer cough, restaurants are still desperate for workers. Again, nobody wants to work in retail, food, or hospitality, despite these industries paying a lot. This article, I kind of disagreed with this. This article said, people don't want to work fast food and hospitality because they can go be construction workers or entry-level data engineers and make $20 per hour. But I'm seeing most fast food places near me. The gas station near me is paying $19.80 an hour. A lot of the fast food near me is paying $20 an hour, $21 an hour, $22 an hour. So I don't necessarily think that, if I have a choice between I can flip burgers for $22 an hour or go work construction and bust my back and be out in the cold for $22 an hour, I'm probably going to take the burger flipping job. But we heard there were numerous studies and surveys that came out back during the Mexican beer cough, and they found that something like 74% of people who worked in food and hospitality and leisure, retail, all that, 74% of them did not want to go back to those industries. And beyond the pay being low, which, right now the pay is actually kind of high, but typically these jobs aren't full-time, so you're having to pick up 2 or 3 jobs to actually get full-time hours. They require a lot of nights and weekends. You don't always have a consistent schedule. You may be sent home early. You may be on call. So no wonder people don't want to work those jobs. Biden is proposing a 5.2% raise for federal employees. The Fed wants to cool wage growth and salaries, and at the same time, Biden wants to give raises to 1.8 million federal employees. Obviously inflation is out of control. Everybody wants raises in the private sector. A lot of people are actually getting laid off or taking pay cuts. So it kind of rubs taxpayers the wrong way when we're giving government employees big raises and meanwhile they're taking pay cuts or they're struggling. We'll see if it winds up going through. This will be the largest salary boost since Jimmy Carter was president when they hiked federal pay 9.1%. Obviously inflation was out of control back then as well. And again, kind of both sides of this. American taxpayers don't want their taxes going to a 5.2% raise. Well, the federal employees union wants more money. They actually want a raise of 8.7%. And what's kind of interesting, remember the government tells us inflation is 6.1% or something like that. So we're going to give these employees a bigger rate than inflation. Obviously, I think you and I and most of us realize that true inflation is probably closer to 15 or 20%. Just kind of anecdotal here, but I'm seeing a flood of posts on real estate subreddits like r/first-time home buyers and r/real estate, among others. A lot of people who are under contract are expressing regret about being under contract. They want to back out of their purchases. You're also seeing a lot of people who are just getting ready to put offers on homes are deciding, this is just too crazy. I feel like I'm buying at the peak of the market. I feel like things are going to crash. I don't want to get in. And you're seeing all these posts of people who are under contract, supposed to be closing in the next couple weeks, the next couple months, who are asking the communities on first-time home buyers and r/real estate, how much money will I lose if I back out of this deal? Will I lose my earnest money? Can the seller force me to go through with the deal? Again, very anecdotal, but I've seen a huge uptick in these types of stories. We kind of touched on this at the beginning of the video, but we got an article from the Boston Globe. A stalemate between sellers who aren't selling and buyers who aren't buying. Who do you think will crack first? So let's look at kind of both sides of this argument. Actually, I'm going to take a sip of my coffee here. So sellers don't want to sell because they feel like they missed the peak, right? Like if you could have sold your home for $400,000 and now you're at $380,000, you feel like you're shorting yourself $20,000, so they don't want to sell. Also, a lot of sellers maybe need XYZ amount of money to be able to get out of the home. Their home is worth less than they owe on it, and so unless they can pony up an extra 20 grand, 30 grand, 40 grand, 80 grand, they can't get out of the home. So those are some reasons why sellers may not crack and why sellers may not sell. Why aren't buyers buying? Well, buyers don't want to buy at these interest rates. A lot of buyers don't have cash. A lot of buyers can't qualify for mortgages. And a lot of buyers out there, kind of hence the real estate post I was just mentioning, they've seen a lot of people in some of these hot markets who have bought homes and all of a sudden, 6 months later, they're underwater 15% on their home. Their home is worth $80,000 less than they paid for it, and these people are going to be stuck in their homes until the market recovers, and a lot of people don't want to put themselves in that situation. My ultimate feeling is that sellers will crack first. Ultimately, somebody's going to get a new job they're going to have to move for. Somebody's going to have to move across the country to take care of a sick relative. Somebody's going to wind up getting a divorce and is going to need to sell the home. Because nobody wants to buy, it's just going to be a game of they're going to have to drop the price enough until it becomes attractive. And at that point, that home becomes a new comp, and the next guy who sells is going to have the buyers and it's going to have the banks and appraisers looking at that lower price. And this is how I see things kind of slowly unwinding and how I see prices slowly coming down. Let's see, CNBC article, 15 million renters pay more for housing than they can afford. Here's how to figure out if you're one of them. The traditional thought is that rent should be, either your rent or mortgage should be no more than 30% of your monthly income. Everybody today acknowledges that this isn't realistic. Like 40% is kind of the more realistic number, but a lot of people are paying substantially more than that. In New York, a median income would have to spend, a median income family or household would have to spend 69% of their income on rent. And let's just kind of break down the numbers there. If you're making $50,000 a year, which is kind of around the average, keep in mind over half of the country makes less than $33,000 per year. If you or your household are making $50,000 a year, that means your rent should be $990. How many people think they could find an apartment for $990? In my area, Chicagoland, even like a suburban apartment, like one bedroom, you're probably going to be paying $1,400 to $1,700. I had talked about, I was visiting a buddy down in West Palm Beach, Boynton Beach area last week. He's living in the hood. He's living in Little Haiti, and he's paying $1,900 for a one bedroom. So good luck finding a place for $990. This is destroying the middle class. People are struggling to keep up with the cost of everything. Groceries, car insurance is up, gas prices are up. People will never be able to become financially secure, and good luck trying to save for a down payment when you're spending 70% of your income on rent. A buddy of mine owns a retail store, and I was in there the other day hanging out with him, and a customer came in. I actually know the guy, and he is a realtor. Now, he primarily works with, this is, again, very anecdotal here, he primarily works with flippers and cash buyers, and he actually said business is great. So even though he works with cash buyers who aren't having to deal with these interest rates, ultimately, after these guys flip the homes, they're having to sell the homes to retail buyers. And I didn't think people would really be wanting to buy homes with 7% mortgage rates. But here's one thing you have to consider, and I didn't have this in my notes, but yesterday I was on the treadmill at the gym, and I was just kind of looking around on Zillow in my area, and I looked at like my city and pretty much all the surrounding cities and cities nearby, and I had the filter set for single-family homes and multifamily homes, so obviously not condos or townhomes, but single-family homes and multifamily homes, up to $450,000, which should cast a pretty wide net, right? In pretty much every one of these cities, I would find some cities had 2 homes for sale, some had 3, some had 4, some had 5, some had 6. I don't think any city had more than 7 homes currently for sale meeting those criteria. So even though we're hearing how bad mortgage rates are, how people don't want to buy, if you have to buy, or for the few people out there who want to buy, there's very little inventory out there. So I can see how this guy who's a realtor who's working with flippers, if you buy a distressed property, you can rehab it and kind of get it into condition to sell without spending too much money, and you can put a house on the market and kind of undercut everybody else out there. I can see how you could actually clean up and sell these homes pretty easy. Next story, we got a Zero Hedge article. U.S. container imports plunge as recession fears mount. Shipping container imports plunged 20% in the first 2 months of 2023. What does this mean? Well, if quote unquote stuff, basically everything that we buy, everything that we import, isn't being imported, it means one of two things. It means either Americans aren't buying things, it means companies think that Americans aren't going to buy things, so they're not going to import things, or maybe some of these companies don't have the cash to buy inventory to bring over here to sit in warehouses that people will maybe buy or maybe not buy. I think this one came from CNBC. Economist Stephen Blitz says his kind of prediction for how things are going to play out here. He says that Powell will hike rates until unemployment spikes, followed by rapid cuts and a crushing inflation cycle. So if that winds up playing out, we're going to see inflation spike, or we're going to see unemployment spike to 7%. We talked about how when Powell was being interviewed or questioned by Congress the other day, they were talking about how historically, in order to bring rates down to 2%, we'd be seeing about 10% unemployment, which is absolutely insane. Again, for context, I believe back during the Great Recession, unemployment was like 5.7%. It may have been as high as 7%, but again, 10% would be substantially higher than that. The Fed would then cut rates, which would cause more inflation, and then we would have the crushing inflation cycle, basically a double dip or a second round of out-of-control inflation. Another Zero Hedge. Senior Intel official warns of TikTok's influence on U.S. citizens. I thought this was interesting. Yesterday we heard that the state of Michigan banned TikTok on all government devices. One interesting thing about that, the governor is exempt. So Gretchen Whitmer can still have her TikTok on her government device, but nobody else can. And one of the reasons a senior Intel official warned of TikTok's influence on U.S. citizens, and I've talked about this before, in China, TikTok, or their equivalent of TikTok, it shows astronauts, it teaches kids about science, it has people doing science experiments. It's trying to educate kids and make people better, more well-rounded human beings. Here in the U.S., what do? We eat Tide Pods. We walk up towers of milk crates and then fall off and break our collarbones. TikTok here is kind of ruining people's attention spans and dumbing people down. And kind of proof of that, recently the University of Massachusetts had a flurry of ambulances rushing to the school. 46 students were hospitalized after taking on a TikTok challenge called the Blackage Rage Gallon Challenge, which they're essentially making their own version of Four Loko. What they're doing, they're getting a gallon of water, dumping out half the water, getting a handle of vodka, pouring the vodka into the water jug. So you essentially have a handle of vodka mixed with a half gallon of water, and then they're taking, those Mio squeezes that you put into drinks to flavor drinks. I guess they got a caffeinated version of that. They're squirting a whole bottle of that into that and then drinking it. So they're essentially making their own Four Loko. You guys will remember Four Loko was actually taken off the market because people were getting themselves all messed up and blacking out. But that's kind of what TikTok is doing to our population. The Hedge had an article yesterday, Zero Hedge. I'm not going to go into detail about why these cities were chosen, so feel free to check out the story yourself if you want to see that. But Hedge had an article exploring the 5 best cities for Bitcoin enthusiasts. Number 1, Seattle. Number 2, Los Angeles. Number 3, Miami, Florida. Number 4, New York City. And number 5, San Francisco. Even though these are hot cities for Bitcoin enthusiasts, these are cities that are kind of most going down the drain in terms of crime and just being kind of toilet cities. I may have this later on in my notes. I may or may not have mentioned it in yesterday's video, but I saw New York City Mayor Eric Adams was urging businesses, restaurants, retail stores, corner stores, bodegas, etc., to force customers to take off their masks before coming in the store. What a turnaround is this, right? Like a year ago, it was wear your mask, care about your neighbor, wear your mask. We shouldn't make people feel bad about wearing masks. Even though we don't have a requirement, if some people want to continue wearing masks, they shouldn't be bullied for that. You shouldn't bother them. And now there are so many robberies going down in New York City that Eric Adams is telling businesses, you should make everybody take off your mask before entering your store. Another Hedge article, China warns there will surely be a conflict and confrontation with the U.S. if nothing changes. And just a few months ago, we had a Navy commander saying he expects us to be at war with China by 2025. Employees are throwing a fit and forcing, okay, so this was kind of interesting. This was Politico, I believe. Employees are throwing a fit and forcing the publication to change the content that they write. Politico will no longer use terms like mother or biological woman because the employees have thrown a fit and said that those are anti-trans slurs. Absolute craziness. You can't say the word mother or biological woman if you're writing for Politico. I can't say too much about this story, but it's recently come out that it looks very likely that Dr. Fauci was engaged in a cover-up about the lab leak theory. He hid information from the head of the CDC and others on the Mexican Beer Cough Committee. That's all I'm going to say about that, and you can look into the rest of that story on your own. Another article, VC funds see mass extinction event for startups in 2023. We've talked about there's a lot of zombie companies. There's a lot of companies that could only exist because of VC money and cheap interest. And they're expecting 81% of startups are facing failure in 2023 because of operating costs, because they only have 12 months of operating costs and there's just no VC money coming in. We have a lot of zombie companies, and I've talked about this before, but it's very possible we're going to see a lot of companies that are very popular, maybe companies like Snapchat and others. You have millions of users, a lot of people like your platform, but if the platform doesn't make money, if it doesn't turn a profit, there's no reason for it to exist, especially when there's no VC money to keep the company going. This story I thought was crazy. CNBC, WWE in talks with state gambling regulators to legalize betting on scripted match match results. It seems like a disaster waiting to happen. Can you imagine this? So obviously some people at the WWE are going to know who's going to win a match. The wrestlers who are going to know who's going to win a match. If you could bet on these things, do you not think that it's going to wind up leaking out? Somebody who knows about this is going to tell their friends or family, you know, hey, place a bet for me, or hey, place a bet on this and kick me back some money. It seems like a disaster waiting to happen. Man, I got a lot more news and I got to get running here. Let's talk about layoffs. 468 tech companies this year have laid off employees. Total number of employees laid off is 126,322. Prison Care laid off 300, 15% of the company. Zwift laid off 80, 50% of the company. Catch laid off 100% of the company. Atlassian laid off 500, 5% of the company. Take-Two Interactive laid off an undisclosed amount of people. And also some bigger companies. Johnson & Johnson recently laid off 350 tech workers. But it's not all bad news. Adobe has opened a new tower and pledges no layoffs in 2023. Though we are hearing that Lockheed Martin plans layoffs coming soon, and Better.com CEO says more layoffs are likely. CNBC article, even in the midst of return to office, employees are pushing back, even in the midst of layoffs, employees are pushing back on returning to the office. There was another interesting story. 7,000 Amazon employees recently lost a class action lawsuit about being reimbursed for expenses for working from home. The reason they lost the lawsuit, the decision was done because of the government and not because Amazon decided to send people home to work. Another article, just 31% of people expect their personal financial situation to improve in 2023. And people have not been this pessimistic since 2010 at the height of the Great Recession. Silvergate, crypto company, crypto bank, is shutting down operations and liquidating the bank. One of the crypto banking giants, they're saying that all deposits will be repaid according to them. Amazon is closing 7 grocery stores in high-crime cities, and I already touched on this, but Mayor Eric Adams is asking New York City businesses to make people remove their masks before going to the store because they have such a problem with robberies. And just how prepared are people for this upcoming recession, this upcoming depression? 3 in 4 women say they're unprepared for the recession coming this year, and 65% of men say they're not prepared for a recession, and 68% of Americans do not have $1,000 saved up. What can you do to combat this, boost savings, improve your income, and cut back on discretionary spending? Anyhow, guys, that is the video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, drop a comment. Let me know where you think mortgage rates will be in June. Again, I think my prediction was 7.8%. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. As always, I want to hear you guys' thoughts, comments, and opinions on everything we've discussed in today's video. If you guys enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below, ring the bell. That's all, guys. I will catch you on tomorrow's video. Later. Peace.